Ayo, the street's going crazy right now because Pooh Shiesty just came home after 4 long years, but what was happening to him in prison was something nobody talks about. Word is, he got bullied in the feds, surrounded by some GDs and rocked to sleep. And here's the wild part. This whole situation might have popped off over a song. Yeah, you heard that right, bars on a track got his ass on the radar of some serious gangsters. Shiesty came in the game wild and flexing Memphis energy, sliding on beats with Dirk and Big 30, and the fans crowned him one of the realest out. But the same authenticity that made him a star is the same thing dragging him deeper into street politics he can't escape. See, in the industry, you can drop a verse and walk away, but in prison, every word, every feature, every connection can turn into life or death. So buckle up, gang, cause this ain't just another rap beef. This is Pooh Shiesty fight for survival. Let's break down how a young Memphis star went from charting hits to dodging hits in federal prison to now back free. Pooh's background: born Lontrell Williams in Memphis, Tennessee. Shiesty rose from the streets to become one of the hottest names in hip-hop in just a few years. Known for his aggressive style, street-oriented lyrics, and collaborations with big names like Lil Durk and Big 30, Shiesty quickly carved out a reputation as a rapper who keeps it real. His rise wasn't just about music, it was about authenticity, a connection to the streets, and a persona that resonated with fans nationwide. But like many young rappers with street roots, success came with a price. Legal troubles started to pile up, and what began as small brushes with the law escalated into federal charges. Behind the headlines and viral tracks was a young man whose life was being shaped by both his music career and his past environment. The fame, the rap battles, and the features were all exciting.
What's going on, family? What's going on YouTube, man? So we got a lot of stuff going on with Pooh Shiesty, man. First I was hearing he was snitching. Now I'm hearing that he was getting punked off in federal custody. What y'all think, man? Do y'all think that it's true or not, man? Do y'all really think Pooh Shiesty was going like that? Or do y'all think he was stepping on shit like, get it back in blood, man? Y'all know, I don't think that it's true. I don't think it's true. But we gonna watch the video because it got details in it. It got some, some facts. It might got some flaws. We don't know, but we gonna watch it all the way through, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, man. Hit that thumbs up for me. And get in that rectangular box underneath the video and leave some comments, man. Let's get to the video.
But they couldn't erase the reality of his criminal record or the consequences that came with it. And that brings us to the chapter that would change everything. Shiesty federal prison sentence, his release to a halfway house, and the violation that sent him right back behind bars. It's in this part of his life where fame meets danger, where music collaborations intersect with gang affiliations, and where survival becomes more than a headline, it becomes a daily fight. Now let's dive into Pooh Shiesty prison backstory and break down how his journey from the streets to a federal facility set the stage for the dangerous situation he faces today. Prison backstory. Pooh Shiesty rise in the rap game was fast, but so was his fall into legal trouble. Born Lontrell Williams in Memphis, Tennessee, he quickly gained street credibility that translated into a successful music career. But the streets and the law always seemed to follow him. In 2022, Shiesty's world took another major hit when he was sentenced to federal prison. The sentence wasn't just about past gun charges. He had also violated probation tied to prior offenses, which meant the courts weren't willing to let him slide. At first, he was sent to a federal facility, away from the public eye, and fans were left wondering how this would affect his career. For someone like Shiesty, who built his brand on authenticity and street connections, prison isn't just a cage, it's a high-stakes battlefield where survival depends on strategy, alliances, and a little luck. But after serving part of his federal sentence, there was a glimmer of hope. He was released into a halfway house, a transitional step designed to help inmates reintegrate into society while under supervision. Family and friends were the first to publicly celebrate his release. His mother confirmed he was home, expressing hope that her son would finally have a chance to rebuild and stay out of trouble. Big 30, his longtime friend and collaborator, also shared updates, showing that Shiesty was adjusting to life outside prison walls. For the first time in years, it seemed like he might have a chance to focus on music and personal growth. But halfway houses are strict environments. Rules are not suggestions, they're mandatory, and any violation can have serious consequences. Unfortunately, Shiesty ran into issues. Specific details about the violation weren't fully disclosed, but whatever it was enough to have him sent back into federal custody. That return was a heavy blow not just for him, but for his fans and family who had hoped he could finally turn a corner. Being back in federal prison is a completely different experience than being on the streets. In a federal facility, inmates are not just serving time, they're surrounded by hardened criminals, gang affiliates, and people who have very real influence over life and death in the system. And for Shiesty, that reality hit hard. Once inside, he was placed in a unit with inmates linked to high-profile gangs, including GDS. That alone raised immediate concerns about his safety. Shiesty's history as a rapper, coupled with his collaborations, added another layer of tension. He had been featured on a song with Lil Durk that dissed FBG Duck, a Chicago GD who was murdered in 2020. Even though Shiesty wasn't from Chicago and wasn't directly involved in that scene, his presence on the track put him on the radar of certain inmates. In prison, affiliations and appearances can matter more than intent, and the situation quickly became dangerous. While the streets may forgive a person for ignorance, the rules inside federal facilities are stricter. Inmates with gang ties take their codes seriously, and anything perceived as disrespect or an unresolved beef can escalate quickly. This environment is unforgiving, and even minor past associations can turn into life-threatening situations. Shiesty, now back in federal custody, had to navigate this complex and dangerous world while also trying to maintain his identity as a rapper. The story of his Halfway House release adds a critical layer to understanding what's happening now. Friends like Big 30 and his mother emphasized that Shiesty was home, living under supervision, and trying to follow the rules. This wasn't just another court headline, he was actively trying to rebuild. The violation that sent him back didn't erase that effort, but it put him directly into the crosshairs of a much more hostile environment. And while prison may seem like a distant reality for fans who see rappers living lavish lives on Instagram, Shiesty's situation is a reminder that street credibility comes with consequences. Being surrounded by people with violent histories, high-level gang affiliations, and personal vendettas means that every move is scrutinized. A wrong word, a misplaced glance, or even past music associations can escalate quickly. As this chapter of Shiesty's life unfolds, it's clear that the halfway home was a brief reprieve. His return to federal custody isn't just another headline, it's the beginning of a more dangerous, high-stakes chapter. And with so many powerful gang figures in the same unit, the tension inside isn't hypothetical, it's very real. The next sections will dive into the specifics of those threats, the involvement of King Yella, and how a song with Lil Durk put Shiesty in the middle of a potentially deadly situation, prison danger and GD connections. Being back in federal custody placed Pooh Shiesty in one of the most dangerous positions a rapper could face, surrounded by inmates with real-life gang affiliations. Among them were a number of GDS, some from Memphis, others from Chicago people whose street history wasn't just reputation, but lived violence. And one of those inmates was King Yella, a Chicago GD with direct ties to FBG Duck, the late rapper whose murder sent shockwaves through Chicago's streets. Here's where things get tense. Pooh Shiesty had been featured on a song with Lil Durk that dissed FBG Duck. Now, Shiesty had no beef with Chicago, no history with Duck's crew. He was just on a track. But in prison, intentions rarely matter. Affiliations and appearances are everything. For some inmates, being connected even indirectly to a perceived enemy can make someone a target. And that's exactly how Shiesty ended up on some people's radar. Through prison communication channels, King Yella got wind that Shiesty was in the same unit as these inmates. The question came quickly: do you want him hurt? Stabbed? It was a real conversation, and the stakes were life and death. Shiesty wasn't in Chicago. He wasn't street beefing with Duck's crew, but that didn't automatically protect him inside a federal unit full of inmates with GD ties. The perception alone could have been enough to trigger violence. Yella's intervention, though, changed the course of what could have been a deadly situation. He made it clear to the other inmates that Shiesty was just featured on a song with Lil Durk, and he had no personal beef with anyone. Essentially, he was the middleman explaining that Shiesty didn't know better, that the track was a music collaboration, not a street statement. It's a fine line in prison. One misstep, one misinterpreted affiliation, and someone could end up seriously hurt. But Yella's credibility within the GD network carried weight. His word reportedly prevented an attack, at least temporarily, and gave Shiesty a chance to survive. Still, being in the same unit as King Yella and other GDS wasn't a guarantee of safety. Every day, the risk of conflict was high. Inmates in federal custody have long memories, and the smallest association with a past enemy can reignite old feuds. And while Shiesty was famous in the rap game, in prison, fame doesn't equal protection. Street credibility in music doesn't shield you from real gang dynamics. This scenario also highlights how Shiesty's music career, particularly collaborations and features, a track with Lil Durk, something meant for streams and clout, suddenly became a potential trigger for prison violence. In a world where gang alliances dictate survival, even unintended associations can carry consequences. And for Shiesty, who was still young and figuring out how to navigate federal custody, the stakes were incredibly high. The tension in that unit was compounded by the presence of other inmates connected to violent crews. Every interaction, every conversation had to be measured. Guards could only do so much inside. The power dynamics are controlled by the inmates themselves. A wrong word, a misread gesture, or a perceived disrespect could escalate faster than anyone outside could imagine. And for someone like Shiesty, whose life and reputation were tied to street credibility, the risk was multiplied. King Yella's role in diffusing the situation shows how important respect and understanding of street codes can be, even inside federal prison. Yella had connections and influence, and he used it to prevent violence against Shiesty. But it also demonstrates how fragile safety can be for a rapper caught in this environment. One day, you're celebrated for your music. The next, your associations could put you on the receiving end of an attack. For Shiesty, this wasn't just about survival. It was about realizing how intertwined his music career and street affiliations had become. Being on a track might have seemed like just a feature in the studio, but in the federal system, it meant potential life or death consequences. And while Yella's intervention likely saved him from immediate harm, it didn't erase the ever-present risk of being in a unit with people whose reputations are built on real violence. This chapter of Pooh Shiesty's story underscores the harsh reality of fame combined with street credibility inside federal prison walls. Music might open doors, but it can also put you in the crosshairs when you least expect it. And with GDS and other dangerous inmates around, the line between collaborator and target can disappear in an instant. Shiesty's survival in that environment depended not on luck alone, but on alliances, credibility, and the careful navigation of a world where every move counts. Current status and confirmation. Pooh Shiesty's story took a frightening turn inside federal custody. After being sent back for violating his halfway house rules, he found himself in a high-stakes environment surrounded by inmates with real gang affiliations. And unfortunately, the risk became reality when he was attacked in prison, leaving him in critical condition. Details about the attack remain scarce, but sources close to Shiesty indicate that it was serious enough to raise immediate concern for his life. The danger for Shiesty wasn't just hypothetical. As we mentioned earlier, he was in a unit with GDS, some connected to FBG Duck, and King Yella's intervention may have prevented even worse violence. But being surrounded by people whose lives are shaped by street codes and past beefs meant that Shiesty was constantly in a vulnerable position. Even with Yella's meditation, the environment itself is unforgiving. One wrong glance, one overheard conversation, and the consequences can be severe. News of the attack quickly spread through social media, and fans were left stunned. For many, Shiesty's image is that of a confident, street-savvy rapper, but fame doesn't insulate you from the dangers of prison. This incident brought a harsh reminder that even someone with a music career and loyal fan base can face life-threatening situations behind bars. Friends and family immediately spoke out, confirming that he had indeed been home after his initial release from federal prison. Big 30, Shiesty's best friend and longtime collaborator, was one of the first to post updates on social media, explaining that Shiesty had been trying to rebuild and had been living under supervision before violating the halfway house rules. Big 30 emphasized that his friend wasn't trying to antagonize anyone and that this attack was not expected. Despite the attack, Shiesty supporters remain hopeful. Fans have flooded social media with prayers and messages of support, urging for updates and holding on to hope that he will recover fully. The rap community has also rallied, showing solidarity and expressing concern for the Memphis rapper. This incident serves as a stark reminder that street roots, fame, and survival are deeply intertwined, especially when a young artist is navigating both the music industry and the criminal justice system. The attack also highlights the ongoing danger inside federal facilities for high-profile inmates, particularly those with known gang affiliations. Even someone like Shiesty, who is primarily known for music rather than street violence, can be targeted due to past associations or perceived allegiances. In this environment, survival is a daily challenge, and alliances like the one with King Yella can be life-saving, but they don't eliminate the constant threat. And while the intervention by King Yella may have prevented even worse outcomes, the attack proves that danger is always present, and one misstep or association can have life-altering consequences. Now Pooh is back home and is enjoying life again, and hopefully he stays out of trouble.